can't see myself on this journey. Welcome to Pathway to Success. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Hunter, and with us this evening, we've decided to fly all the way from out of the United States of America to the beautiful, beautiful nation where the Queen resides in Buckingham Palace. Right there in London, England. I have with us this evening Miss Claudine Duberry, or Dame Claudine Duberry. She's a criminologist, author, and she has worked within the community as a social worker, also with young people. And what a privilege! As a matter of fact, I have my cup right here. My word, I have a cup of tea. I don't know if she has hers. Well, she didn't right there, but I make sure I got my cup right here, filled and running over. Dame Claudine Duberry, great to have you on Pathway to Success.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
I love that British accent. My word, what time is it, mate, in London?
Well, the time is actually 11 o'clock if we're going to speak the Queen's English, mate.
Okay.
Yeah, we're 11 o'clock Sunday evening or Sunday night.
Sunday night. Thank you so much for making yourself available. You have done so much. You're an author. You have received also multiple awards for your services in dedication to the community. You have worked also with challenged young people. You have also received the Honorary Dame Award and Unsung Woman's Award in Aringe. I don't know if I pronounce it well, my Queen's English. The London Mayor Hidden Credits List, the Master of Arts in Youth, Crime and Probation. Oh my God, so many awards. Bachelor's in Social Work, Criminology and Social Policies, Theoretic, Master's in Social Work, also Distinction Level 4 in Education, Training and Counseling, preparing to teach in the lifelong learning sector. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is a dame? First, to begin with, what is a dame? Because we in America, I'm sure many of us in America don't know what a dame is.
I think, in a nutshell, a dame is very unique to the UK. A dame is normally an award that's been given by the Queen or the royals for various services. Now, I think on my pathway to this award, I've been given awards by the Metropolitan Police for services to the community. I was the community rep at the time of our longest siege in the time of the Metropolitan history, which took place in 2003. And that lasted 15 days with hostages being taken and part of the community, which is in East London. A little bit more easier for you to pronounce. That one is in Hackney.
Can I say something? I don't want to interject here. You have been you had a hostage situation for 15 days.
For 15 days.
And you were you the negotiator? Were you a person that was on the scene that came in to? What happened? Tell us a little bit what happened.
I was okay. So if you look at my bio tells you that I was the individual that set up an organization called the IAG. The IAG stands for Independent Advisory Group. The Independent Advisory Group was set up after the murder of Stephen Lawrence and at the time of the Macpherson Review. So the IAG is a community group that works in partnership with the police. So what there happens is that when the police has a situation in the community where it needs community input, it calls on organizations like the IAG. Now, the IAG was first set up in Hackney in 2000, and then it has now rippled over the UK. So although I was the individual that was responsible for setting up the first IAG, we now have IAGs right across the UK, engaging with the police forces right across the UK, although they were predominantly set up to work specifically in London because Stephen Lawrence was killed in London. So having set up the IAG, with the hostage situation, I was called upon to be the voice of the community. Literally, I did the negotiations between the community and the police to just kind of pass information and keep the peace, really, because we've had situations where the confidence between the community and the police is very low. The community, especially those from the Black and ethnic minority communities, is very low in the police. So this was another way of kind of building bridges between the police and the community. So yeah, so I was that individual that went to engage with the police. And yeah, so we had a 15-day hostage situations where I basically did the negotiation between the police and the community and the police and the hostages family. And yeah, so unfortunately, or fortunately, all the hostages got out of their situation very safely, but the hostage taker died.
Okay. What led you to pursue this this type of role in your community? How do you got started? What inspired you? Was there a part of an individual? What is it? What is it? Was it the issues that you saw that was affecting the youths in the community? What got you started?
My career started back in the early 90s as a basic grade social worker. And it just continued to climb. I suppose as a basic grade social worker, you're very limited in what you can do within social work, within engaging with the community, with engaging with the young people. There's always red tape that you have to get through. Now, I'm an individual that if I have to deal with a case, I don't want to deal with the here and now, but I'd like to deal with the past and also the future. So what that means is I'd like to know what brought you to our attention, and you're here now. What will take you into the future and kind of break the cycle for where you're at? Now, that's very hard to do within social work. So I spent about 10 years being a social worker in various different departments before I decided to leave the red tape and the constraints of the government department and set up an organization of my own, which is called Taking Positive Steps. So literally what that meant was I was taking a positive step out into the community to engage with those who I felt like, although that we were offering them a service via government agencies, we weren't doing enough to help them to get off of the path that they were often on and onto the new path. So that's literally what led me into what it is I'm doing now.
Wow, that's very powerful. And so you have accomplished so much. You're also an author, the author of Gun Gangs, and as well as you're the author of one book, right? The author of Guns Gangs.
Two.
And the implication for social workers,
yeah,
and whose child is it anyway?
Yeah.
Give us a little background. What motivated you to write that book on gun gangs and the implication of social workers and whose child it is anyway?
Right. So those are two separate books. Guns, Gangs, and the Implication for Social Workers. It started this life as a thesis. When I did my master's in social work, I wanted to do an in-depth study on guns and gangs and how we as social workers interacted with that client group. Now, one of the challenges for social workers is we don't get a lot of grounding in the client group that we're expected to go out into the community and engage with. But having already been out into the community, I mean, when I went off to do my master's in social work, I had been in social work for a number of years. I had engaged with this client group for a number of years. So that's why I wanted to do an in-depth study around them. I mean, when we as social workers look at this client group, we often see the victim or the perpetrator. We never see the victim as being a perpetrator or the perpetrator as being a victim. And often they are one and the same people. So the book basically is a guide for social workers like myself, or who may not have had as much experience as myself, new coming social workers, or even social workers who have been in the field for a number of years, but who haven't engaged with this client group, to kind of look at who they are. First and foremost, they are children, young people, before they're a victim, before they're a perpetrator, before they're a criminal. We have to see the child, the young person, and then we go on to looking at who they are, the crime that they may have committed, what path did they take to bring them here, what's their history, what's the root causes, and I'll aim to bring it all together in one document. So that book, Guns, Gangs and the Implication for Social Workers, is now sold right across the world. You can buy it on Amazon. But here in the UK, it's used as a teaching material in the universities just because it holds so much information.
I like that. That's powerful.
And then for the whose child is it anyway? That was kind of a follow-on from the Guns and Gangs, because, you know, we have this saying that it takes a village to raise a child. But when children, young people get into crime, people are very quickly to wash their hands. It's never my child, or it's never my community, or it's always not in my backyard. So we often have to ask, whose child is it anyway? Whose child is it behaving in this way? You know, you, for one, are a pastor, and the Bible tells you that all the children belong to the church. All the children belong to the kingdom. So all the children belong to us. So why are we always asking, whose child is that anyway? Why isn't it the fact that it is our child, and as a community, we have a duty to rally around this child, young person who's often in trouble and in need of help and guidance?
I like that. That is very powerful. You're considered a criminologist also. Could you explain a little of what does a criminologist does in your work within the community?
So the criminologist, I've actually got a master's, as you said, in criminology.
Yes.
And I think having studied the criminology master's, what that has helped me to do is engage with forensic social workers, is engage with the police on a wider scale, is it to engage with the prison system, young offenders units, and also to have a better understanding of why children and young people often come to the decision that they come to. Now, like in America, the UK has a great big gangs problem. Now, I don't like to call them gangs because I think when it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, when you give them these labels, they often live up to the label that you give them. Yeah. So I call them children who are behaving in an unlawful way, unlawful group association. But what we need to do is look at what are the root causes behind why they behave what they do. So that background, that study that I've done in criminology has just given me a wider insight to be able to look at that with kind of taking off the rose-tinted glasses and being able to share the knowledge and experience with my colleagues.
So what are some of the problems in your research, in your daily work with the community that you have found out that has led these young men or young women in the path of crime and the gang? Is it a lack of employment opportunity? What is it?
Well, the media in the UK would like us to believe that the biggest group of young people behaving in an unlawful way are those from African Caribbean backgrounds. That's actually far from the truth. And I'm actually about to release a research paper that's done some in-depth study into this. And the paper's actually called Victims of a Fractured System. And when we look at who the victims of a fractured system, they're often children and young people who come from poverty-stricken backgrounds. Young people where their parents are often working 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, to keep clothes on their back. But often when parents work 2 jobs, the question is, who's at home looking after your child? Who's keeping an eye on your children when you're gone first thing in the morning and back late at night? It's often the older children who are responsible for looking after the younger ones. It is often the case that children, young people, and predominantly young men, although the females in our community are catching up very quickly with them, often look and see mum struggling. You know, she's working 2 jobs. She's putting food on the table, but yet still we don't have the extra, we don't have the residual income to do the niceties. So that then often means then that they're pulled into a world that they wouldn't often be in. We also have a high exclusion rate from mainstream education within the UK. As we speak at the moment, we've got something like 859,000 children between the ages of 4 and 16 excluded from the mainstream education system. Now, in the UK, when they're excluded from the mainstream education system, they're then put into what we call alternative provisions, which is the acronyms for it is approved. That basically is a farm, as it were, for gangs. It's a recruitment agency, because when we put them out into this alternative provision and we don't pay as much attention to them as we would give to them if they were in the mainstream education, they lose hope. Why exactly am I here? What does my future hold? But somebody out on the street is saying, well, if you come with me, I'll give you an extra £100. I'll buy you a pair of trainers. I'll buy you that designer trousers. I'll buy you that designer jacket. I'll give you that smartphone. Now, this may be the things that mom can't afford to buy you at home. So very quickly, they fall into this cycle that they then find it hard to get out of. So that's where we end up.
Wow. The inspirational Dame Claudine Duberry, one who has been making such a great difference in the community of Aringay, right there in London. We're going to take a short break. Then we're going to come back to Pathway to Success to hear this inspirational story from Dame Claudine Duberry.
Thank you.
Son was stabbed. This was a really scary time as I feared for my son's life, and nobody else wanted to take on the case. I just want to say we are forever grateful, and I feel like we need a lot more projects that actually deliver the work that they say they do.
Today, I want to tell you the story of Stephen. Stephen was a young man that I met in court in 2007. Stephen had been arrested for being in possession of a firearm, live bullets, kidnapping, and intent to endanger life. There are 9,000 children excluded from mainstream education in the UK. There are 778,000 children looked after by the local authority. There are over 10,000 children and young people on the books of the National Referral Mechanism, and there are 338,000 children on the books of the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service. But why was Stephen here? Stephen had been bullied at school, had been excluded from school, and had been groomed by the gangs. This brought Stephen to the attention of the police. Whilst in court, it was my duty to carry out a vulnerability assessment for Stephen. Stephen, in my assessment, was vulnerable. However, Stephen was remanded to Feltham. After 2 days of being in Feltham, Stephen attempted suicide.
I was bullied at school and I didn't want to go to school anymore. My mum didn't know what to do, so she contacted an organisation called Taking Positive Steps. They came to school with me and my mum. They also spoke to me and they provided me with a mentor who helped me find my way back through the school system.
I just want to thank Taking Positive Steps because they helped me to get back into school when I lost hope, because my parents are drug dealers, so sometimes I will go to bed without food. So I started dealing and ended up in the youth offending teams. Now I'm back at school, not drug dealing anymore, and I'm actually on path to applying for Brit School in September.
Our children are in crisis. My name's Claudine Duberry and I am the CEO of an organisation called Taking Positive Steps Foundation, based in London and covering the UK. Now my question is, how many more children are we going to have excluded from school? How many more children are we going to have caught up in the children and adolescents mental health services? How many more children are we going to have groomed? And that is normally the start of the journey, where they end up in the trap houses. They end up being exploited by the gangs on the streets, and we as professionals are missing the opportunity. We have children who are dying and we fail to engage with them before it gets there. Taking Positive Steps aims to reduce the number of children and young people who are caught up on the county lines, who are groomed, who are trapped in modern day slavery and the trap houses. How many more children and young people are going to be caught up in the prison service? But more importantly, how many more children and young people are we going to lose to the graveyards? If you invest in us, we can invest in them and stop Stephen's story becoming the norm for our children and young people.
Welcome back to Pathway to Success. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Hunter, and we have gone over to the beautiful nation of London, England, and we're interviewing Dame Claudine Duberry, criminologist and author, and her outstanding work within the community with the young people. Tell me something, Dame, or should I say Claudine Duberry? I like that word, that name Duberry. Also, how do you measure, with all the years of what you have been doing, how do you measure success when working with hard to reach young people within the community? How do you?
I think for our organization, measuring success is very simple. If we can turn around one life, that's a success. If we can divert one young person out of the gangs, out of the trap houses, that's a success. If we can stop one young person from being groomed into the gangs, that's a success. If we can have children placed back into the mainstream education system to complete their education, or to put them on an entrepreneurial program where we encourage them to set up their own businesses, that's a success. For every life we save, that's a success.
I like that. What are some of the communities? What are some of the challenging communities in the UK? I know Haringey, that's the proper pronunciation?
Haringey, yeah.
Haringey, right, is one of the community, but have you worked in other communities away from that communities, or are you just based in that area?
We cover the whole of the UK. So we've got a program that runs up in Scotland. We'll be pleased to show you Scotland. I'm sure you'd be happy to go and see there. We've got a program that runs up in Liverpool. We've got a program that runs down in Wales. So we basically cover the whole of the UK. And we've been very fortunate because we've been invited to do talks over in Trinidad. So I can go back to Trinidad.
You can. My word. Oh, my word. Really, you can? That's great.
We've been invited to support the community in Montserrat with helping to set up their social work department. And we've been invited to go down to Jamaica. There you go. We're coming to your neck of the woods to help them down
Jamaica.
there because, Taking Positive Steps has a couple of directors, and two of them are actually from Jamaica. So we're being invited to come down and do some work over in Jamaica. That would have been last year. Unfortunately, COVID stopped us in our tracks, but we're hoping that now everything has begun to open up again, that we'd be able to pick up that opportunity. So I suppose the only opportunity we're looking for now, Dr. Michael Hunter, is to come and work with you in Florida.
Well, we'd love to have you to come here and work with us in our community in Florida. You have done such a great job in the entire United Kingdom, even moving over across Scotland. And but tell me something. You work with all these young people, and I know that it's a great, must be such a happy time when you can see young men and women lives change and they mold into great members of society. What do you do to keep yourself motivated when you're going through tough times? Sometimes you may have a case and you're saying, "Oh my word, I don't know what am I going to do next." What keep you motivated on a daily basis to go out there and help these young people in the community?
I think it's literally the village around the child. It's literally looking at every child as yours.
Right.
It's thinking
Like,
to yourself, I would like to know if this was my child, somebody would be there to treat my child as theirs. Somebody would be there to take that interest in my child. I suppose a lot of the children and young people that we engage with, parents find it challenging, and it's not because they're bad parents, it's because that there's often the pulls and the pushes, and what we call the pulls and the pushes is the streets. So the streets are pulling you, your family's pulling you, it's that pull and push. It's the choices that they make, and often home life loses out to the streets because the children and young people who get involved in the streets are dying to belong. Now, there's actually a document that was written by the government some years ago, which is called Dying to Belong. And when you look at it, and even when we look at it some 10 years down the road, children and young people are still dying to belong. They want to be part of a bigger picture. They want to be part of a group. They want to have a presence. They want to have a stake in something. And sometimes that's hard to do when, the jobs are far and few between. The exam marks that you needed to get to go to college or university weren't the ones that you were expecting. So they often feel as though the doors are constantly closing, but the street life accepts them with open arms. So, in answer to your question, the motivation is remembering that child belongs to somebody and that child belongs in the community.
what are some of the programs that you've implemented in Florida? I know that within certain communities, we have a program for sports, basketball. The kids get involved in basketball. We have skilled programs, but what are some of the programs that you have implemented?
So we've got a few programs. We've got a program that we run in schools, which is called Consequential Thinking. Now, that program is literally asking children to think about their actions. It teaches them that for every action, there is a reaction. So that's about consequential thinking and the mindset. So that program is normally taught to 10 to 12-year-olds within the junior school, the primary school. We've also got, we run a first aid program for children from 7 to 16, and it's called Save a Life with a Hand. And we literally teach our children and young people the basic skills of first aid. You can save somebody's life with a hand. Because what we found in the UK, we were running into a culture where young people would be at a scene, and instead of trying to help to save somebody's life, you take out your mobile phone and video it and put it up on social media. I was here. But if you put that phone down and think about what are the tools which are immediately around me that I can maybe help to save that person's life, and now I've done better and I can then put that up on the social media, that would be so much more better. So we run a first aid program that teaches children and young people how to save a life with a hand. We run a prison program in our high security lifers prison called My Brother's Keeper. And it's literally about preparing them to come back out into the community. Now, although they're lifers and they may be there, some of them have got 30, 35 years, but what does life look like for you when you come out? You know, and what was the pulls, the pushes that got you into this situation, and how can you turn that around and rebuild your life if and when you hit back out into the community? But it also teaches them how to mentor each other, because you know, in prison they're all caught up in this very confined space, and they often get into conflict with each other. But if you can teach them how to mentor and be their own troubleshooters, then there's less work for the prison guards to do, and less animosity between them all. Because after all, this is like, prison is literally like being on the streets. You have to live in that confined space with each other. So we kind of teach them how to do it. And we've also got a street patrol program, which is literally a program where we've got mentors who are outside of the school gates at the time of school finishing, and at the bus stops at the time children and young people are going home. And that kind of aims to cut back on the grooming. It aims to cut back on children being diverted from going home and ended up going in the wrong direction and getting into conflicts or situations which they don't have to get into. So that's also our school patrol program. Apart from that, we're on a journey to kind of build resettlement units for children and young people who are coming out of custody, and who we're aiming to help you rebuild your life. Being in custody, don't matter for how long a length of time, you need to build those relationships with friends, with families, with your children, and kind of find an education or a pathway which will now divert you from whatever took you into the criminal justice system.
I like some of the programs that you have, especially the ones, when you were saying that 7-year-olds are being taught CPR to help a person if they're going through a crisis, or they have been shot, or whatever situation that is going on. I really like these programs that you have implemented in the communities, and you're a great inspiration. You're doing a great work within the community, and also within the nation of London. And for those invites that you've gotten from other Caribbean nations, it shows the impact and the success of what you've been doing. What advice can you give to young people out there? What would you say to a young person when they're approached by someone in the gang? How would you what would you say to a young person if someone from the gang tried to initiate them or invite them to become a part of the gang?
It's not about what you say. You cannot say anything, because I may say, getting involved with the gangs is not the way to go. It's not cool. But as far as they're concerned, you're older. You're old enough to be my mum. What do you know? We're the younger generation, and what the gangs are offering them is it always looks like a light, the glitters, Our parents coming here from the Caribbean used to say that they came to England with this thought that the streets were paved with gold. Now, young people are being offered that same kind of thing. If you come to this side of the world, this is what we can can do for you. So it's not what you say, it's what you do. What can you offer them in line with what the gangs can offer them? You know, the gangs are saying, we can help you to make £50, £100, £150. How can you reproduce that? So a lot of the young people on the streets who are caught up in the gangs, they've got business skills. You have to have business skills to be able to run drugs from one community to another community, to be able to buy drugs from one community and pass it through another community, to be able to stay below the radar of the police. You've got business skills. So why can you not take that business skills and make money legitimately? And that's when we offer them our entrepreneurial program. So our entrepreneurial program will look to find out what it is that they're interested in. You know, we've got young people who are interested in creating their own brand. What brand? What does that brand look like? They're interested in creating their own T-shirts with their own logos. Well, okay, so where do you start? Who's going to design your logo? Who's going to print your T-shirt? Where are you going to get your T-shirt? How are you going to market it? Who's your target audience? We help them to do all that. It kind of gives them that self-worth, satisfaction, that this is mine, I've created this, and you're earning money legitimately. No policeman can't come and knock on your door. We've got young people who've created their own snapbacks, which is the caps. You've got your own logo on it. You wear it on the street in pride. If it's an interesting enough logo, you know other people are going to want to wear it. We've got a lot of young people who are into the rap music. Okay, well, let's see who we can get that will sign you up, that says that you're not indebted to a gang member who may sign you up.
You know, I'm a Manchester United fan. I don't know which team that you support in London. Which is your team?
I don't support any team, but my family sit between Tottenham Hotspurs and Arsenal.
Between Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal.
Yeah.
Well, two very good London teams, right? Rivals of my team. But have you ever had anyone from this program that you have, independent, your program that you've worked with youths in the community, that has ever gotten an opportunity and they're now playing professional sports?
We have a couple of young people who are playing for Millwall.
That's good.
We've got a couple of them who are on the Tottenham Hotspurs and Arsenal under 16s program, because these football teams, they do offer under 16, under 18 programs, but a lot of the young people don't want to get into it. So you've got to catch them when it's early. Yeah, you've got to find that interest. As I said, not a lot of young people anymore are interested in football unless they could see that they have the opportunity to go further. But they would be interested in, as I said, setting up something for themselves, being their own brand, marketing their own brand, and having that satisfaction that this is all about me. I did it. It's like when they're on the streets, they think it's all about them. Actually, it's not about you. It's about the man that sits at the top that's pulling your strings. But if you set up for yourself, this is all about you.
What are some of the obstacles? I like the idea that many of the young people have been invited to join certain of the professional, well-established professional clubs in London, Millwood. You mentioned Arsenal. Arsenal became famous with Arsene Wenger. Tottenham Hotspur. I remember Chris Huddle. So many famous players at that time. And now that they're involved in that, that's one great avenue, because sports is also a great avenue for young people to express themselves and become very independent and very prosperous. But share with us just a little before we close, what are some of the challenges and obstacles you had to really overcome to get to this journey of success?
My challenges and obstacles. I think my challenges was really marketing my own self. I suppose coming out of social work and trying to convince others, especially local authorities, that I can see the gaps in the market, and between my team and myself, we are equipped to address the gaps in the market is a challenge, because nobody wants to be told that actually, you know, you're failing a young person, you're failing a family. We can actually see a gap that you're not covering, and we can actually cover it. But it's also the fact that we can go into places that maybe statutory services can't get into. So that also helped me to address the challenges. I mean, I can go onto an estate quite happily, but not many social workers or even police officers may not feel that individually or even as a peer they can walk onto some of the estates. Where we are based in Haringey, Haringey has the longest established gang in the United Kingdom.
Really? What's the name of that gang? Don't worry, I won't come there. Don't worry, I won't come there and join it. No.
We won't take you to go and see them. We won't take you to go and see them. But yeah, in all seriousness, so, you know, we've got one of the longest established gangs. They call themselves the Tottenham Mandem.
Tottenham Mandem.
So they're TMD, right?
Okay,
now
yeah.
they've been established from the youngers, and the youngers have gotten older, and some of them have gone to prison, and then it started again, and it's just been a revolving cycle. And they are the longest, most established gang in the UK. And the question is, why can't the Met, because we live in the Metropolitan Police area, break that up? And it's because they're literally like a family. Yeah? You take one of us out, and the other one's waiting to replace whatever member has gone. Yeah, they're that gelled and that tight together. Yeah,
wow.
Where a lot of the other gangs within the UK have disbanded, or many of them have gone to prison, some of them have died. These lot just keep going.
Keep going. Well, I want to commend you for the great work you're doing in trying to, you know, get these young people out of the gangs and get them on a path of success, on a path of to become an inspiration and a great contributor in a positive way to society. As a single mother, I guess you're a single mother, right? Right, single mother, and a woman, I admire your passion and your drive. Have you ever had any time when you have gone into the communities to meet with these gang leaders or these youths? Have you ever experienced any form of fear before? Have you ever had any close call? Anyone trying to come at you in a violent way? Have you ever experienced that before?
For me, I leave that hard lifting to my business partner. He's very good at doing that.
Yes.
He's very good at interacting with them. So if there's a situation that may look a little bit dodgy, I leave that to him.
Okay. Now I see why you suggested that I should land in Trinidad before you. What? You have heard it right here on Pathway to Success. The Dame Claudine Duberry, criminologist and author out of London, England. The great work that she has been doing to mold the young minds, to shape them, these young people into promising and productive young men and women of tomorrow. I want to thank you all for joining us on Pathway to Success. And remember, in your walk in life, you can also be a success story or a story of inspiration like Dame Claudine Duberry. Thank you, Miss Claudine Duberry, for coming on Pathway to Success.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great week.
And you, thank you.
had to come like this. I said, what?